Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha, Jai Ganesha. Please visit our website at classicalyoga.org, and there is a donate button if you'd like to help us out. Today's podcast, Religious Chemistry 101, we are hot-wired for religion. Our very consciousness of being alive, of feeling, is the evolutionary process of the development of basic chemicals that can be found not only within humans, but animals and even plants. Remember, Homo sapiens, the species of Homo sapiens that still survived, only go back about 200,000 years ago, and quote-unquote, modern humans as we know them, about 100,000 years ago. And barely surviving extinction out of Africa through social interaction. We, in a sense, separated from our fellow primates by developing our frontal lobes, by having to socially interact with one another. This is the essence of what is religion. Remember, this word, and we're using English, and obviously it's a common language, and language to try to describe these things. Religio, essentially meant to link back, to try to understand ourselves and those around us, the world at large. This is the essence of what religio is. And eventually, as social interaction increased, a sense of right and wrong and moral order. In observing life, yes, there are lone wolves, if you will, but plants, animals, as the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. They tend to gather together in a natural bonding sequence. This is actually the neurotransmitter, the first hormone, if you will, of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Religious gatherings, families. The sense of touch, procreation. This is the foundation of human interaction. Again, if we look at religio as this simple attempt, simply profound attempt, to link together, to create a foundation with those around us, this is the essence of what it is to be religious. Whether or not one belongs to one of the established religious traditions of today is another matter, but the process is there. Now, specifically in the Hindu yoga religion, or Hindu dharma, we use the word dharma, which has a very similar meaning. It comes from dri, to hold, trying to figure out what holds things together. This is the important recognition of when to use generalities and when to respect specifics. So religion is a general term. Again, English is a common language. Dharma is a very specific term to what is now the recognized religion of Hinduism. So too, the Sanskrit Hindu word yoga, which means to yoke, Y-O-K-E, carries a similar connotation of a joining together, a union, a yoking, a holding, a linking together. But again, yoga is a specific term, specific to the Hindu dharma, Hindu religion. So the first step is people getting together and recognizing their groups. Again, birds of a feather flock together. You can see this in the animal world, the plant world. You can see this with humans. But as humans, we also have the ability to reach out to those of other groups, for example. But so too do the animals. How many of you are living with cats and dogs? And did you ever stop to think that if you have a cat, for example, in your house, you're their only interaction? They're not interacting with any other of their species. They have learned to do this. So we humans, we have learned also to do that. Obviously not without sometimes devastating consequences, as we become rather myopic at best, or tribal warfare at worst. But this bonding hormone, oxytocin, is natural to life itself. So in other words, any organization, but obviously we're focusing on religion here, religious organizations automatically elicit the production of oxytocin as people bond together, as they enter into service, selfless service for others, as they enter into touching, embracing each other. Now, all of these neurotransmitters, these hormones, can be found, again, within the plant and the animal world. So we look at the next hormone, which is very primal, obviously, serotonin. This is the feel-good hormone, which is extremely complex. And it's interesting that one often uses the analogy of an Indian story, a Hindu Indian story of the four blind men and the elephant. And you're all familiar with this story where one person touches the leg of the elephant. They're blind and they can't see the entire animal, so they think they're encountering a tree. The other touches the tail and assumes that this is a rope. The other touches the trunk and assumes this is some kind of large snake. And the fourth touches the ear and thinks it's some kind of a broad, wavering leaf. And obviously they're all wrong because they're just seeing one part. So serotonin is often likened to that because it's extremely complex. It's often called the happiness hormone. It's responsible for mood, also for digestion. It's responsible for memory and learning. And serotonin is stimulated by simply saying thank you. It's gratitude. So being grateful naturally stimulates the production of serotonin. Also, natural sunlight as well. So now let's look at the hormone of dopamine. This is traditionally the one associated with rewards and goals and focus. As individuals and groups of individuals, we all have certain goals that we point to. Those aspirations that make our life worth living. We can also look at the stimulation of dopamine through the acts of devotion. And it's worthy to reflect that devotion is really the secret ingredient of life. Without devotion to ourselves, to our family, to our friends, to our job, to our goals, we won't be successful. Now, in the Hindu yoga dharma, and we'll really define the word yoga as we go, it's not what most people think, unfortunately. But bhakti yoga is the area of devotion, and it's actually the second yoga. Karma yoga is the first yoga, which is profoundly ethics and selfless service. For remember, we can be devoted to the wrong thing, the wrong person. This is why true devotion, in general, needs to be predicated upon an ethical understanding, or else we're devoted to the wrong thing. Remember, career criminals, the mafia, etc., they're highly devoted, but to nefarious processes. Then we come to the endorphins, which are the pain-relieving hormones. And they can be induced by exercise, as all the hormones can. By laughter, by chocolate, by contemplations, enter religious contemplations, Raja Yoga to the Hindus. So the bottom line is that these hormones are what it is to be an alive and aware being. Now the point is that we can stimulate these hormones in a natural way. Sometimes medical intervention is necessary, prescriptions, but also there are the popular illicit drugs that can stimulate these hormones as well. But it is clear that when we look really at a mature look at the religious life, it does balance and stimulate these hormones in a most natural way. Now remember that like all things that are human created, and religions are no different, right? We humans, we are capable of doing some really good things and some really bad things. So this goes across the board, no matter what institution we humans have developed. There's good and bad. But a mature person doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So for example, if there are bad politicians, we just get rid of those. We don't throw out the system. If there are corrupt police, we just get rid of those, or corrupt teachers. We don't get rid of the system, though. So too, when we look at religion, and when people do bad things within religion, we don't get rid of the process. We just get rid of or reform the bad behavior, if you will. So, again, to recap, some positive ways to stimulate the natural oxytocin within us is basically social bonding, interactions one with another. Sometimes medical intervention will produce more oxytocin in the drugs of pitocin and syntocinon. Of course, there are illegal drugs that do that, ecstasy, Molly. Then to naturally produce more serotonin, we want to just live a life of gratitude and thankfulness. Basically a wholesome lifestyle. And across the board, all these hormones are greatly stimulated by a good wholesome lifestyle, good diet, exercise. But sometimes there's intervention medically for production of serotonin with the infamous Prozac, and then obviously the negative drugs of cocaine and quote-unquote other feel-good drugs. Then to naturally produce our dopamine, we want to have a good sense of anticipation, of setting goals in life. Actually, in our diet, dairy produces dopamine. With medical intervention, sometimes we need various drugs, for example, Parkinson's, which is a symptom of a lack of dopamine. And of course, there are the infamous opiates and alcohol, all the teens, the nicotines, the amphetamines that illicitly stimulate dopamine. Then, of course, we have our all-important endorphins, which, again, a good, wholesome lifestyle, taking life seriously but not too seriously, knowing when to laugh. Meditation or contemplation found in all the religions of the world. And there are certain prescription drugs that are needed sometimes for the endorphins, Vicodin, morphine. But of course, they can be really abused. So in a real way, we are this chemical factory and also the chemist. And obviously, as chemists, we have various degrees of understanding. And sometimes we're the guinea pig. So just from a general human standpoint, we stimulate our oxytocin by bonding one to another. We stimulate our serotonin by striving to do the right thing, to be ethical. We stimulate our dopamine by our devotion to life itself. We stimulate the endorphins through meditation, which is simply concentration. Contemplation gets more into the religious spiritual realm. And if we keep repeating this process, which we like to call the EDME process, the EDME process, if we bond together and in ethics, E, in devotion, in meditation, we will experience an ongoing enlightenment. And by that, what we mean is one feels a greater sense of lightness, and perhaps an inner realization, inner light, which, think for a moment, without that, we don't have dreams, imaginations, inner visions, inspiration. If we keep doing this process, the EDME process, it's an evolutionary spiraling process that makes life much more coherent, worth living, as opposed to being unethical, lacking devotion, lacking concentration. So with this EDME process, we can see life in general, and certainly we can see this reflected in the various religions of the world. Up to now, we've been looking at the all-important material world, mental and emotional. In other words, body, mind, and emotions. But religion takes the fourth step into consideration, something beyond that. So to look to that, let's look at all of us when we were infants. We were this bundle of pure existence, pure consciousness, pure energy, and warmth or heat, and a sense of pure love also. The inner essence of all of us. Now, in some religions, they call this the soul. But remember, that comes from the Greek psyche, so it's connected also to the mind. But in the Hindu yoga religion, Hindu Dharma, we call this the Atmana, which literally means not the mind. In other words, the inner essence of pure existence, pure consciousness, pure energy, light, heat, which temporarily is residing in a body, mind, and emotions. This is clear in the infant. They are a bundle of pure consciousness, pure energy, pure light, pure heat, which translates into the human emotion of love. And you can see it. They just smile, they just laugh, and then they go to the other extremes too, as they're learning to control their emotional nature. But so powerful is that infant in that love that it can make everyone in the room feel that love. Smile. Proof positive of the inner essence of all of us, which again, for better or for worse, all religions point to. So our very growth shows us the inherent religious process, if you will, as we then learn to move through the world, to crawl, to start doing some work. And we learn what is right and what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. This is all what Hindus would call karma yoga, the work of living, developing beliefs. And we all have those, which start as assumptions, and then obviously we want to carry those through to conclusions. And so too, as a young child, we have total faith in life itself. And faith is extremely important. That's the hope. But we don't want to just stay there, of course. We want to have that faith or that hope develop into a guarantee. So as children, we naturally pray, if you will, for food. We need food. We need the comfort of our mother. This intense devotion to Hindus, bhakti yoga. And we learn to play. We start to sing. We start to dance. And parents sing and dance with their children to stimulate them. And actually, if we look at the very essence of being a Homo sapien, being tribal, we could say that our first religion was singing and dancing. As we get this oxytocin flowing through us, this bonding ceremony, as we relieve the natural pains and stresses of everyday life through song and dance, it's very primal to being alive. And notice, for example, that in the Hindu Yoga Dharma and other religions too, that we promote song and dance. Interestingly, in the monotheistic religions, not all of them, but not all phases of them, but they often have poo-pooed, if you will, especially dancing. It is said that actually pews were put into the churches to stop people from dancing, believe it or not. When the rigid missionaries went to Hawaii, what did they do? They stopped the people from dancing, from wearing their grass skirts, and even surfing. So this mind, can become, as we often say, our best friend or our worst enemy. So again, as we begin to grow into young boys and girls, we start to develop our subconscious mind. And we start to think. We think in a sense of unseen beings. We have superheroes in our mind. This is the imagination and creativity. Is this not indicative of religion as we pray to unseen beings? And do not people continue to do that through their life? One may think of unseen boyfriends and girlfriends, if you will. Some imaginary. Do we not reflect on those that are departed? Unseen beings, if you will. Again, indicative of religion. Then as we continue to grow, we begin to introspect. As a mind, we think about our body. So we can see it in a sense as separate. In religious, we take a step back, if you will, and then reflect on beyond the body, beyond the mind, into something that is the substance behind all of that, that Satchidananda, that love, light, and energy that was always there from the beginning. It's there now, but perhaps covered up more with just the pressures of everyday living. Till we have those moments of reflection when we start to, in a sense, peel off the outer layers. This is why people become attracted to meditation, for example, contemplations. This is Raja Yoga to the Hindus. And then we continue our life with setting our goals and achieving relative successes and having fulfillment in life. This is what we would call Jnana, Gyan Yoga. In other words, having an enlightened state of being, having set goals and having realized them. So we can clearly see this natural religious process that is just part of being a human. So, to those who follow the various religions of the world, well, you're our brothers and sisters, of course. To those that follow the Hindu yoga dharma, Hinduism, the Hindu religion, you can clearly see the wisdom of our lifestyle of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga. Now, we spoke about this before, but please remember that the Sanskrit Hindu Tamil word, yoga, yogam, actually means to yoke or to join to this inner essence, the Atmana. It's not simply an exercise routine, as sadly has been perpetuated today. So profoundly, this Sanskrit Hindu word yoga, yogam Tamil, to yoke to our Atmana, is the very purpose. And to achieve that purpose, Hindus follow specifically, remember, ethics, devotion, meditation, enlightenment, that's general. Hindus specifically follow, in order, karma yoga, Hindu ethics, bhakti yoga, Hindu devotions, raja yoga, Hindu contemplations, jnana yoga, outer study, and the inner study of enlightenment. And within those four classic yogas, we have devotional postures, hatha yoga. That's the one that's been totally distorted. Mantra yoga, Hindu devotional chants, japa yoga, Hindu devotional chants on beads, nada yoga, Hindu devotional music, and nata yoga, Hindu devotional dance. All of this stimulates the inner awakening, which we call kundalini yoga. The stimulation in a very natural way of all of these endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. So for all of those who come specifically to our ashram, the Hindu Yoga Dharma Yoga Ashram, Classical Yoga Hindu Academy, think about how we are stimulating all of these natural hormones that we Homo sapiens have always possessed. So we come as a family, Hindu Dharma, automatically stimulating the bonding hormone of oxytocin. And then we like to start by finding our internal compass, our GPS. And we use that as an acronym for gratitude, persistence, and sacrifice. Dhanyavad, Vira, which is our warrior or persistent spirit, and Yajnam, which is the word for sacrifice, which also is yoga. So, as we begin with the GPS, gratitude, Dhanyavad, that's automatically stimulating the serotonin. And our first yoga of karma yoga. Then our dopamine is stimulated by eliciting our warrior spirit, Vira, our bhakti yoga, our devotion. And then our yajna, our sacred doing, our sacrifice, automatically stimulates the endorphins. This is the Raja Yoga. And then we always begin with beseeching Mahaganapati, who in the Vedas is known as Brihaspati, the great expansive, laughing deity. And the laughter automatically stimulates the endorphins, the enlightened state of being. And as we end our satsangs, we always send out a prayer to others. And remember, it's one thing to pray for someone, which is simply sending out good thoughts and then hopefully followed up by actions. But we don't want to prey on somebody, P-R-E-Y. We don't want to take advantage of them. We don't want to steal from established religious traditions like the spurious yoga movement is doing today. So praying is one thing, but praying P-R-E-Y on somebody else is not a good thing. And also, it behooves all of us to stand up, just like our story of Ganesha, and not be prey, P-R-E-Y, for others. Learn to stand up for principles. So as we end our satsangs, we're really stimulating our serotonin as we wish others auspiciousness. We wish them a life of peace, no matter who they are. We wish them fullness and tranquility. Om sarvesham svastir bhavatu. Sarvesham shantir bhavatu. Sarvesham purnam bhavatu. Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. And then we stimulate the oxytocin, the feel-good hormone, as we pray for others to feel good. especially those that are sick and suffering. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. And then we stimulate our dopamine by setting goals. Always going from untruth to truth. Asato ma sad gamaya. Humbly admitting our ignorance as we move to an ever more enlightened state of being. Again, more dopamine. Tamaso ma jyotir gamaya. And finally stimulating the endorphins with tapping into the inner pleasure, the inner nectar, the ananda of the Atmana. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Which brings about peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So enjoy the chemistry of life, the chemistry that's within you. And if you've gained some benefit from this and our many, many podcasts on the Hindu Yoga Dharma and life in general, and respecting the specifics, you can help us out. Visit our website at classicalyoga.org, and there's a donate button there. And our information is there if you want to use Zelly. You have our address, our email, our phone number. And we can use your help. So regardless, thank you and have a wonderful day. And take your life seriously, but not too seriously. Remember, you're religious just by seeking to get your act together, to link yourself together, to try to figure out what your life is all about. But to those who have joined an established religious tradition, or maybe there's new ones to come, who knows? But don't steal from already established religious traditions like today's yoga. But to all of those who have chosen a religion, remember, yours is a way. It's not the way for everybody. It's not a universal way. It's a way. This would go a long way to helping to eradicate religious violence that we've seen throughout the ages, and to help us all understand the inherent religious process. So, for what it's worth from our end, here's hoping that you have a wonderful experience through this lifetime. And there's a Hindu proverb, time is more precious than rubies. So why not take advantage of every precious moment, because it can be over quicker than we think. So hope is a good thing. Believe, hope, but carry them through to convictions. And don't take somebody's hope away from them, because at the moment that may be all that they have. That may be all that you have. You know, and it's not a coincidence that prior to Titanic and E.T., the most popular movie was The Wizard of Oz. But all three of those movies are about hope and inspiration and otherworldly experiences. And ultimately finding the answers within. This encapsulates the Hindu Yoga Dharma. Tattvam asi, thou art that. We are the Atmana, the inner essence, soul, if you will, of love, light, and energy, with emotions, mind, and body. So like Titanic, don't take things for granted. And E.T., phone home. And Dorothy's immortal words, there's no place like home, the inner home, the inner home. And the classic song by the group America. Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. Tattvam asi, thou art that, the hum brahmasmi.